Hi class, this is Kelly Brewer, and I'm joined by my teammates Stephen Blaylock and Brian Donovan. And today we're going to talk to you about negligent hiring. So what is negligent hiring? Well, negligent hiring is a legal claim made against an employer by either a damaged employee or a person relating to the business who claims that the employer should have known or could have known about the employee's past history that would indicate that they may be violent or untrustworthy. Now, a business can easily avoid negligent hiring claims by performing background checks, drug testing, medical exams prior to the onboarding of that new employee. These are pretty standard practices. A lot of companies are adopting pre-employment checks as part of their day-to-day operations. So basically, that's it. That's the gist of negligent hiring. There's been a lot of cases that revolve around that, and Stephen is going to now talk to you about some cases that we've looked at and do a little comparison.
In our project, we look at 6 cases having to do with negligent hiring, and we'll discuss each of those very briefly here. The first was Blair versus Defender Services. Defender Services was a custodial contractor for Virginia Tech. A man named Harris was employed by Defender Services without having completed a background check. He had a restraining order currently against him for violence towards a woman in the next county over. One day he was working at Virginia Tech and he attacked Blair, a student, pushing her down and choking her, and she then brought suit against Defender Services for negligent hiring. Next, we have Diaz versus Carcamo and Sugar Transport. Carcamo drove a tractor trailer for Sugar Transport. He was involved in a traffic accident that then left Diaz with permanent and severe injuries. It turns out that Carcamo was in the country illegally and had used a false social security number to get a driver's license. He had also been found to be at fault in 2 previous accidents. One of those was only a week earlier. Next, we have Jane and Jill Doe versus XYC Corporation. This is one that involves a minor, which is why we only have Jane and Jill Doe, and then the person working for XYC Corporation that was at fault is only referred to as employee. XYC's employee was Jill Doe's stepfather. He had hidden a camera in his 10-year-old's room and then had those files sent to his work computer. He then took those files and uploaded the videos and the pictures to child pornography sites. Even though it had been brought to XYC's attention that he was using the computer in inappropriate ways, they did nothing to it because they argued they didn't have to, since he was not a danger to other employees and that this was a family matter. Next, we look at McGill versus Bartlett Towing. Bartlett Towing hired a tow truck driver named Russell Hoffman. Hoffman had previously been convicted of theft, grand theft auto, and burglary. McGill got into her car after leaving the store one night, and Hoffman turned on his tow truck lights and motioned for her to get out of the car. As she did so, Hoffman then went and stole her car. She then sued for multiple claims, including negligent hiring. Reagan versus Dunaway Timber. Queensberry was a tractor-trailer driver for Dunaway Timber, and he one night crossed over into oncoming traffic and collided with another tractor-trailer, resulting in the death of the other driver. Queensberry had previously had 2 revocations of his driver's license for DWI. And then finally, Keesall versus Bartz, Buchanan County, and Sheriff Davis. Crystal Keesall was a canine handler with her local sheriff's department, and Tracy Bance was a sheriff's deputy, and he was also married to the sheriff's daughter. Bance had had several complaints registered against him with no disciplinary action, and then he photoshopped a picture of Keesall and made her appear topless with her canine unit. She then sued the department on several claims, including negligent hiring. Several similarities in these cases can be seen. In each of these cases, except for Jane and Jill Doe versus XYC Corporation and Keesall versus Bance et al., negligent hiring claims were brought as a result of physical injury being sustained by the damaged party. The sugar transport and Dunaway timber cases are very similar in that more discretion in hiring a driver may have prevented an accident. Finally, the emotional damages to Jill and Jane Doe and Crystal Keesaw could have been avoided if the employers had curtailed the moral shortcomings of their employees.
So what could have been done differently? First and foremost, the business managers could have understood the liability associated with negligent hiring. They could have made sure the applications were fully completed and carefully reviewed those applications for errors or omissions. During the interview process, they can ask questions that are similar to the questions on the application to see if they get the same answers. They can also ask about areas of the applications that were not filled out or if there were time gaps in between employment. Performing a background check is also important. That gives the employer some reassurance that the information they were given in the interview and on the application are in fact accurate. And the employer should always keep a record of these activities, just in case they're ever called into court and they have to defend their position. They can show that they did their due diligence. And finally, the employer should always encourage all employees of the company to maintain an open line of communication with management. That way, if an employee happens to have something going on, whether it was in his past or acting strangely, this gives the business manager the opportunity to address it before it gets out of hand. So now let's look at a real-life scenario.
Hey Brian, what do you think about background checks on new employees? It'll cost us about $50 per hire, but I think it'll save us a lot in the long run. What do you think?
I don't know, Kelly. That's a lot of money for a small company like us. I think it's a waste of time, and we can save money and skip that right now.
And so the CEO decided against mandatory background checks to save money and increase profitability of the company. He decided the standard interview process was enough. In the meantime, two employees were traveling together for work. The driver was under the influence and crashed, causing serious injury to the other employee. The new hire seemed great in person and on his resume, but he has a history of bad driving habits, including 2 operating under the influences, multiple speeding tickets, and a revoked license. Now, our other long-time employee is out of work and in the hospital. She's currently in the process of filing a claim.
This was negligent hiring. A simple background check would have revealed his unsafe driving history. You never should have let him have a company vehicle. I never would have been injured in the first place. I refuse to settle.
And what do you say to that?
It was costly to provide background checks on all employees.
Well, it's going to be a lot more costly now than if the checks were completed. I award the plaintiff $100,000 in damages due to negligent hiring practices.
Wow, Brian, that just cost us way more than if we had done background checks on every employee at our company. Plus, we just lost a great long-time employee. Board, we'd like to announce our new background check policy. It will create a better environment for our business, customers, and employees. It will also save us time and money in the future as well.
Smart decision. A little money up front can save a lot in the future. Plus, you will hire better people this way. The board supports your decision 100%.
I'm really glad we changed the policy.
Me too. I regret not changing it sooner and allowing someone to get hurt. This costs so much more financially and emotionally than I ever imagined. Thank you for watching.